Well, let's now delve further into this with Deloitte. We're joined by Tewodros Sisay. He's the Associate Director at Deloitte's Financial Advisory here in East Africa. Great to have you with us, Tewodros. Now, of course, according to your report, you expect the region to bounce back, grow by 3% this year. Given that the virus threat is far from over on the continent, may even be getting worse, still pretty uncertain, what are the factors that you think will keep economies in the region resilient?
Thank you. Good evening, and thanks for having me as well. So if you remember from last year's publication, we were very pessimistic about the different sectors impacting the economy. However, contrary to what we were expecting, the agriculture sector really helped the economy to bounce back by 0.9% and really helped the East African economies to avoid recession. So in 2021, we expect sectoral growth, more specifically in agriculture. If you have seen, the global commodity prices have been increasing, so that would really help economies that are relying on coffee, tea, and horticulture. And we expect growth in manufacturing, transport, and construction because of the infrastructure investments in countries like Rwanda, Ethiopia, and the mining sector in Tanzania as well to pick up. So those will really support the economy to pick up in 2021. And hence, that's where our expectation for 3% growth is coming from.
Now, some may say that's quite optimistic because let's look at the realities on the ground right now. We're seeing the possibility of the recurrence of lockdowns, especially looking at the somewhat slow rollouts of vaccines across the region. What are the chances these factors could hamper or be an obstacle to a pickup in economic activity that you see?
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with them. The past 2 years really showed us, doing economic forecast is the most difficult thing. So we really also expect if these issues that you just mentioned, the additional issues that I'm going to mention, is going to come back, and it's going to bite back the countries as well. For example, now most of the countries are really fighting inflation because of depreciating currency. You can see that in Kenya. In Ethiopia, the two biggest economies in East Africa. So inflationary pressure is going to be one of the toughest things for central banks to manage. And you'll see increased debt levels as well. So now it's really eating into the fiscal or the budgetary issues that countries are facing now because of the support that they were providing through tax cuts as well as sectoral supports. And then, of course, the recurrence of lockdowns as well. I mean, we have seen Uganda going back into a 42 days lockdown. So all these things are, all our forecast is contingent on these matters. If this is going to come back, of course, economies are going to really impacted by the negative impact of these variables.
Now, of course, as you just mentioned, your report also assessed the measures taken by respective governments. In light of this, what's your perspective on the extent of budgetary pressure on some of these economies, and of course, how that could impact the outlook going forward?
Yeah. So I mean, the biggest challenge that we see for the region is, of course, debt management. If you look at the debt to GDP ratio have really increased to 66% in 2020. We expect this to go to around 75% in 2021 because the countries really need to finance some of the infrastructure investments they have because some of the countries are really reliant on infrastructure growth. And all of the countries are really dependent on agriculture. So they really need to support all these things. So that means now they need to have, they are going to have gaps in their budgets and they need to finance that gap. So all that is going to now impact all the payments that goes through that for the dates, for all the dates that they are taking and they will take in the coming few months. So we really think that is one of the key things that's going to impact East African economics. I think if you look at it, the tax cuts and all sectoral supports had to be financed through debt. And if you have seen some of the new tax implications, for example, now the full tax payments that are coming back is really going to impact the economy. But for me, the most important thing is the debt management. So prudent management of that debt is going to be very critical for these economies.